Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is the show where we give you that shortcut to being truly well informed. We basically take a whole stack of source material, articles, research, notes, you name it, and pull out the absolute key insights. So whether you're prepping for something, catching up, or just, really curious, we're here to guide you through. Today, we're doing a fascinating deep dive. It's into just one single homeopathic remedy. It's called Chimphila umbellata. You might also hear it called pipsasoa.
That's right, Piptasoa. It's quite a name.
It is. And our source material today is pretty foundational. It's excerpts from the Homeopathic Materia Medica by William Boericke, a classic text.
Absolutely. Cornerstone text in homeopathy.
So our mission today, to really unpack the unique qualities, the very specific uses, and honestly some intriguing details about this plant remedy. We want to help you understand its role as described and just how precise the indications can be in homeopathy. How one remedy might touch on seemingly very different things. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it. So, Chimphila umbellata. Boericke's Materia Medica describes its main action, its principal action, as being on the kidneys and the genitourinary tract more broadly.
Okay, kidneys and GU tract.
Exactly. But beyond that, it also points to effects on lymphatic glands, key immune system parts, and mesenteric glands, which are in the abdomen linked to digestion. And quite notably, it mentions a specific affinity for the female mammy, the breasts.
That's quite specific already. Kidneys, urinary system, but then glands and breasts too. Interesting. So according to Boericke, what kind of person, what sort of individual profile would typically lead a practitioner to think about this specific remedy? This is where it starts to get really interesting, understanding the patient picture.
It really does. And the source gives some very vivid descriptions. It mentions plethoric young women with dysuria. So women who might seem quite robust, maybe full-bodied, but they're experiencing painful urination. It also specifically calls out women with large breasts and people suffering from hepatic and renal dropsies. That's fluid retention, right, related to liver or kidney problems. Then, more surprisingly, chronic alcoholics, and perhaps the most curious one, incipient and progressive cataracts.
Wow. Okay, that's an incredibly wide range for just one remedy. From urinary issues to cataracts, large breasts, alcoholism. I think it's worth pausing here, especially for listeners maybe newer to homeopathy. It's important to grasp that remedies aren't typically given for just a disease name like in conventional medicine.
Exactly.
Instead, they're matched to the whole picture of the patient's unique symptoms. All of them, no matter how diverse or seemingly unconnected they might seem across different body systems.
That's the core principle, the totality of symptoms.
Right. And that's why one remedy, like this Chimphila, can apparently cover everything from bladder pain to eye issues. It's about matching that specific individual symptom pattern it's known for. So, given its main focus seems to be urinary, let's really get into that. The text mentions its prominent use in bladder affections, notably catarrh, acute and chronic. What does that look like?
Well, when we dive into the urinary symptoms Boericke lists, they aren't just specific, they're often quite graphic. It describes scanty urine and urine that's loaded with ropey, mucopurulent sediment.
Ropey sediment, okay.
Yeah, and to elaborate, it's detailed as being turbid, so cloudy, offensive in smell, containing ropey or bloody mucus, and deposits a copious sediment.
That definitely paints a picture of significant inflammation or maybe infection.
This strongly suggests that, yes.
And the actual act of urinating sounds, well, pretty awful. Burning and scalding during micturition being the medical term for urination, and straining afterwards. But there's an even more unique detail mentioned, isn't there? Something about straining before.
Yes. That's a really key, peculiar symptom. Must strain before flow comes. That feeling of having to push, but nothing happens initially.
That's very specific.
It is.
Yeah.
And what's perhaps even more fascinating, or at least highly unusual, is the description of a very particular posture needed for urination in some cases.
Yeah.
The text says, unable to urinate without standing with feet wide apart and body inclined forward.
Wow. Just imagine observing and recording that level of detail. Feet wide apart, leaning forward.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It speaks to the level of observation in classic homeopathic provings and case taking. The source also mentions a distinct feeling of a ball in perineum. That's the area between the genitals and anus.
Okay.
And even the presence of sugar in urine, which, historically would point towards conditions like diabetes.
That specific posture, the straining before the flow, it really conveys extreme difficulty and discomfort. And it makes sense then why the source connects this remedy to things like prostatic enlargement and acute prostatitis retention in men.
Exactly. Those conditions directly impact urinary flow in similar ways: obstruction, difficulty starting, straining.
So we've established this strong connection to urinary problems with these incredibly specific, sometimes almost bizarre symptoms. But Boericke also details how Chimophila's influence shows up differently in male and female conditions, right?
Yes, he does. For males, the text lists symptoms like smarting in urethra from neck of bladder to metasis. That's the opening. A really irritating sensation. It also mentions gleat, which is a term for a persistent chronic urethral discharge,
Oh, okay.
and loss of prostatic fluid, alongside the things we already mentioned, like prostatic enlargement and irritation.
And what about for female conditions?
Equally specific, the source mentions labia inflamed, swollen, pain in vagina, and even systemic things like hot flashes.
Okay, inflammation, pain, hot flashes. But the breast symptoms seem particularly detailed and, well, maybe a bit confusing.
They are quite striking. And you're right, there's an apparent paradox. The text describes a painful tumor of meme, not ulcerated, with undue secretion of milk. So a painful lump, but with milk production when maybe it shouldn't be happening.
Okay, painful lump, excess milk.
But then, almost contradictorily, it also lists rapid atrophy of breasts, wasting away of the breast tissue.
So, both excess secretion and shrinking, that seems contradictory.
It does on the surface, but this is actually a fascinating window into how materia medica works. It suggests a single remedy might address opposite extremes of a function like overactivity or underactivity, growth or atrophy, depending on the rest of the patient's symptom picture.
Ah, I see. It's not about treating a breast problem generically, but the specific way that problem shows up in that individual alongside everything else.
Precisely. The totality is key. Boericke also specifies cases of women with very large breasts and tumor in the mammary gland with sharp pain through it. Again, highly specific combinations.
That really underscores the individualized approach. It's not just the what, but the how and who. Now, while the main action is clearly genitourinary, Boericke does list other, maybe less central symptoms in other body areas. These add to that unique remedy signature, right?
Absolutely, they complete the picture. For the head, for instance, it mentions very specific pain in left frontal protuberance, or visual things like seeing a halo about the light.
A halo. Interesting.
Also, itching eyelids and a stabbing pain in left eye with lacrimation, so with excessive tearing. Very precise sensations again.
And elsewhere.
In the mouth, there's toothache worse after eating an exertion, better cool water. And this really peculiar one, pain as if tooth was being gently pulled.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gently pulled. Not sharp, not aching, but pulled.
Exactly. And for the skin, it lists scrofulous ulcers, an older term for chronic, slow healing sores, often linked with swollen glands and general glandular enlargements.
Okay.
And finally, for the extremities, there's this odd feeling of a band above left knee, like something's tied around it.
So many little unique details. This raises an important point in homeopathy, the modalities. What conditions or factors make these symptoms worse?
Yes, modalities are crucial. Boericke is quite clear here. Symptoms are described as being worse from damp weather.
Okay, damp weather. Makes sense for aches and pains sometimes.
Also, from sitting on cold stones or pavements. Very specific trigger there.
Sitting on cold surfaces, right?
And generally, there seems to be a particular pattern of aggravation on the worse left side.
Left-sidedness. That's another common element looked for in homeopathic prescribing.
It is. This attention to detail, what makes it better, what makes it worse, time of day, side of the body. It's all part of building that precise symptom picture to match the remedy.
And how does Chimphila umbellata fit within the broader materia medica? Does Boericke compare it to other remedies, to help differentiate it?
He does. Comparisons are vital for practitioners. He mentions Chimphila maculata, which is a related plant, but notes it has different key symptoms. Things like intense gnawing hunger, burning fever, and a strange sensation of swelling in armpits, distinct from umbellata.
So, related but different uses.
Right. Other comparisons listed are uva ursi, ledum pelistre, and epigoea repens. These are other remedies often used for urinary or rheumatic type issues. If we sort of connect this to the bigger picture, these comparisons really help define Chimphila umbellata's specific therapeutic niche. They ensure the practitioner picks the most similar remedy, the simillimum.
Makes sense. It's about precision. And just for completeness, the dosage mentioned.
Yes, Boericke suggests tincture to third attenuation.
Okay, so for anyone unfamiliar, the tincture is usually an alcohol extract of the plant.
Sure.
And third attenuation means it's prepared in a specific homeopathic way, but it's considered a relatively low dilution or potency compared to some others.
That's generally right, yes. Lower attenuation.
Okay, so let's try and recap this deep dive into Chimphila umbellata. We've seen a remedy with a really strong primary focus on the kidneys and the whole genitourinary system,
Aconite.
characterized by incredibly detailed, sometimes quite unique, symptoms around urination, the straining, the sediment, even that specific posture.
Hmm. Very vivid descriptions.
We also looked at its specific roles in male and female conditions, including those, well, fascinating and almost paradoxical descriptions related to the breasts, both painful tumors with secretion and atrophy.
Yes, highlighting that principle of addressing opposite states.
And this exploration really drives home how remedies in a materia medica like Boericke's are defined by these super precise, sometimes idiosyncratic symptom patterns, even down to things like being worse in damp weather or from sitting on cold stone or having symptoms predominantly on the left side.
That's exactly it. It reinforces that whole idea that within homeopathy, remedies are known by these very specific, sometimes unexpected symptom collections. It relies on meticulous observation and detailed recording, like we see in Boericke.
So, wrapping up, what does this all mean for you, the listener? As we've explored Chimphila umbellata today, maybe just consider how such incredibly precise, almost quirky details about symptoms get observed and recorded in a system like this.
It's quite something.
What might it tell us about the really intricate and sometimes quite surprising ways our bodies express imbalance? And maybe the kind of dedication it took to actually catalog all these specific human experiences. Definitely something to mull over. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.